Live.
All
It's
right,
because
there we go.
it says live. It says live. I always want to quadruple check this thing on my
Well,
actual
when
Facebook.
I find when I do a training like this that it's good to it's something you can send to your other teammates and stuff like that, to answer questions about lead conversion because
Yeah.
yeah, it always goes a long way. Oh,
It's going to be a great piece of content. Oh, yeah, so we're actually live. We're here. We're here. We're live. And we've really talked this one up, right? So we better meet expectations here, Barry. There's some a lot of people that are interested in this conversation. Thank you so much, Barry, for being back, a returning guest here in the group with us.
yeah,
Really great to have you here. I could go on and on about, who Barry is, what he does. Watch the other interview if you're really interested in that, because, the only thing I would add to the intro and Barry's resume is that he is now a published author, right? So that's really the topic of today. We're going to be talking about this book, right? And,
yep,
and we're going to be talking about the book and some great questions that have come out of discussing the book with my team and with you folks, people in this very group, this Facebook group. A lot of fans of the book here today. Got some great questions from them. Got some great questions from my team. And I want to discuss with Barry and also some selfish questions, Barry.
yeah,
Selfish questions
do it.
about, how the book and this method could even help me even more than it already has. But I want to start with let's set the table here. And I want to let you know, Barry, that I'm one of the guilty parties. You call out in your book, right? You call out in your book because I remember when Wailopo was first launching. I remember I was at probably an LCA conference, probably was one of those, and Howard was there talking about Wailopo, right? And there was this phrase he used, right? That at the time, I'll be honest, kind of made me cringe a little bit, right? Because he said, this is a great opportunity to engage these top of funnel leads and build relationships
Yep,
instead of just going for the close. Okay.
yep,
And I was like, oh, come on, Howard. Like, really? Like that? Are you really going to go there? Oh, I get it. These leads don't convert well. Oh, I see what you're trying to do there. I see you were trying to do there, Howard. I see it. And it was a very cynical reaction, right?
sure,
To
yeah,
a different concept that I was alien to. And this is a lead conversion guy talking here. I'm not just like a solo agent, in a small town. I'm
right,
like, this is what I did for a living. This is what I
yeah,
did for a living. And I broke every rule in this book for the longest time. And Barry, the interesting thing was it worked back in 2018, right?
did it did,
You could approach Facebook leads this way in a very transactional way,
yep,
getting what I wanted out of the conversation. And at one point, we are doing this for, I think, 20,000 leads a month, like mostly from Facebook, and it worked fine. But you know what? Things changed though, right?
they
For
always
my
do.
team, I'm like, hey, why aren't our conversion rate is not going up? It's going down actually, right? And it's consistently going down with that approach. So it got me into thinking years later, not that same month, I wish it would have had, but years later, I'm like, hey, I think we need to change our approach here because this old transactional approach, what do you want? Are you pre-approved? What's your time frame? When do you want to meet? Is not working very well anymore,
Right, right,
particularly with these Facebook leads. So I'm setting the table on why this book became so interesting to me, right?
sure,
Because I think
sure,
it brought together a lot of concepts I had seen kind of in a lot of signs, a lot of signals. A lot of signals I've been seeing,
yeah,
a lot of real data, like numbers and conversion rates and struggles from my team, my clients, other teams that I saw really struggling with this. So that was my journey to arrive to this book and how valuable it was. Barry, what was your journey to write this thing, right? What prompted you to identify this problem so clearly and articulate this response?
yeah, that's a great question. My market, the average sales price in 2016 was around 220,000, give or take. And at that time, I was predominantly buying leads from Zillow and Realtor.com. Well, for a few different reasons, those particular portals were one of the more expensive cost per lead than like we're comparable in cost to like parts of California, where the home sales
Wow.
price was 800 to $1 million. And part of it is because of the number of transactions, because of the military. We have the largest Navy base in the world. So we just got in and out. I went a year, spent almost $1 million on Zillow leads. And I think after it panned out with splits and all that, I think my net was about 50,000, and it just wasn't worth the risk. And so I had to figure out how to convert leads from Google and Facebook. So long and short of it is, I did really well, really quickly using the Ylopo platform. So Ylopo hired me and I became a full-time employee of theirs from like late 2016 through, I'm still that way. And I ran my team in tandem. My team is the test lab for Ylopo at that time. Anyway, for 7 years, man, I've been teaching this. And well, at the time it was probably 5 years, and everybody acted like it was a big deal when I got done. And so I finally decided that, okay, maybe converting middle of funnel leads at scale is something that others need to learn about it. And, I don't like reading books with just information. It's kind of boring to me. I like stories. And so I decided to make the book a way to help people convert middle of funnel leads, but using my story of kind of how I came to be what I am today.
100%. Yeah. And that part of the book, it makes it very engaging, And you did something interesting, Barry. I didn't see it coming when I first bought the book. Know this, but a big part of the book is it's a faith-based book. Or actually, my question to you would be, do you consider this like a faith-based business book, or is it a business book first that happens to be grounded instead of like the NAR code of ethics or your own personal experiences? You brought a lot of faith into the book, right? So tell me about that. Was that a conscious decision you made? Is that something that, because you could have like hidden in it, right? It didn't have to be at the forefront, but it is in the forefront of the book. Tell me about that.
Yeah, when I first wrote it, I wrote the book and I really didn't mention much of anything about it. And when I had people beta read it, they came to me and they said, where are you getting? You said you had a crisis. What were you comparing? Why did you decide that you didn't want to manipulate, to lie, to cheat and steal? Where did that concept come from? And I realized that I had intentionally left out a huge part of who I was because nobody wants to talk about religion. And so in the beginning of the book, in the foreword, I mentioned that while this isn't a book written for Christians and religion and all that stuff, the principles that I'm leveraging to run a successful business are based off of the fact I pastored a church for 10 years. That's who I was, right? And I mean, that's what I did, and that's why I became what I am. And so I actually had a few people that I had a Muslim and somebody that was a Buddhist and another person that was Jewish come to me and actually thank me for writing the book in a way that allowed them to see my faith without me imposing my faith. And I was so grateful.
I think that's what people are concerned about with book, when they see like if the title would have been faith-based complete conversion, like I'm not sure. It might be like a little bit more. I would assume that it's imposing something, right? Probably incorrectly. I would assume that. I think you strike a really good. I agree with those folks. I think you strike a really good balance there.
Yeah, like I felt like I did it to share who I was. I didn't do it to share my faith. And I think that's the subtle difference. I think if I had written the book to purposely like evangelize, I honestly don't think it would help as many people. And that sounds weird, but I wrote it so that everyone could learn. There's too many nice people that just aren't good at selling things. And that's, that's the end of the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's drill into that, because that's one of the questions I had. How does niceness make you kind of suck at sales? And what's the path back? Can you expand a little bit on that? Because that's a
Yeah,
good chunk
yeah.
of the book is talking about that, right?
Yes, yes. And man, you are asking some tremendous questions. So just pause for a moment. Power ISA community. I've been in interviews where the person didn't ask really good questions. Gustavo is pulling a lot out from me that you guys really, really great questions. So let me say this. When a person knows what they want, so a referral, someone from your sphere, I can be motivated by making the other person happy and do very well selling things to those people. They call you and say, hey, I asked my friend if they knew an agent. They gave me your name and number. I need to buy a house. I return the message quickly. I meet them promptly. I'm not weird. I don't stink. I help them and they buy a house, right? And I'm driven by pleasing them. The problem with the middle of funnel lead, so this is someone that went to Google, they're typing in homes for sale in Virginia Beach. You are still being motivated by making that person happy. The subtle problem with that is this person that you're calling doesn't think they need you yet. Because they don't think they need you yet, because they don't know what they want, they don't want to talk to you. And so if I'm driven by the desire to please that person, the only way I can effectively do that is to rush off the phone, because that's what the person wants from me. And what I try to help nice people driven by the desire to please understand, and I'm not trying to be condescending or rude when I say this, but if I'm driven by my emotional need to make people happy and to feel accepted, that is a selfish desire. And nice people many times are driven by the desire to please others and to make themselves feel accepted. And that's just not fair to the stranger on the other end of the phone that we call a lead. What would be fair is to be driven by the desire to actually help. And if you can have a 3-minute awkward conversation with a person that doesn't think they need you, they don't see any value in speaking with you, they want to get off the phone, and your instincts are driving you to hang up because you want to make them happy. If you can work through and ask a few well-crafted questions, you're going to surface a need for you to be involved in their journey. Like, for example, if they think that they have to have 20% down, that's an easy one. I ask a few questions. They're like, well, yeah, I'm waiting until next year. Instead of just accepting that, I just say, well, how did you decide?
And getting off, right? Like disconnecting.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
okay,
Oh,
fine.
okay. Well,
It's
can I
okay.
call you next year? You know, that's what we do. Can I send
Yeah.
you emails and call you next year?
Can I
Instead of
check in
doing
with
that.
you once a month? Are you ready
Right.
now? Are you ready
Right.
now?
It's a waste of everybody's time. It's a waste of everyone's time. They don't want to do that. And if we're being honest, when we say that, do you mind if I check in with you every month? We feel so silly. The nice people, like it's because we know it's like they don't want that. And I feel weird saying it because I know they don't like it. But if I ask them good questions and they say, I'm waiting next year, and I say, how did you decide you're waiting next year? And they say, well, I'm saving up my 20%. I've just keyed in on something. They don't have to have 20% down. They might not know that they could buy with 3.5%. In some markets, no money down if they're in the military or other programs. So I get to be the bearer of really great news. Hey, John, I know that you're saving up 20%. Did you know you don't have to do that? No, Barry, I didn't know that. Okay, this is tremendous. Let me explain it to you. And now I get to please them through actually serving them in my trade, in my craft. And I think this is unique to real estate. I mean, it does transcend into some other industries, but I think with real estate, you are selling someone something that they've already decided they want. Everybody wants a roof over their head. So I'm not selling them the concept of a house. I'm trying to sell them on, I'm valuable to you. And just trying to make them happy isn't enough with the middle of funnel, trying to figure it out lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, we should clip that. So, editor, we got to clip that response because this is the biggest insight in the book for me, right? I had not seen that problem, that challenge, that, issue of those middle of funnel leads that approach, because I fundamentally kind of knew that most agents struggle with unmet leads. I kind of would call them like unmet leads, right? These unmet leads, if they approach them the same way they approach their sphere, referral and recommendation clients, they're gonna have a rough time at it. They're not gonna be successful, right? But I was never able to like really bring it down to why exactly, right? I just knew their expectations were mismatched. But it's not just the expectation, right? But I think the book is doing a really good job at bringing down and saying, yeah, you're misunderstanding or kind of ignoring, not just misunderstanding, ignoring where the buyer is in this journey, right? And you're approaching it in a very, you said in the book, very selfish way. Like, hey, are you ready to transact or not? That's when I want to talk to you, right? Because if you're ready to transact, I really want to talk to you. You're not ready to transact, well, then let me know when you're ready to transact. So I'll be here waiting for your call, right? When you're ready to go, because before that, we really should be talking, right? I don't see a point in that. And Barry, I don't know if you saw this too, but I saw that when people would transition from referral and recommendation based business, and also the portal leads, Zillow and Realtor.com. They were kind of geared towards be quick and shoot for the kill with those leads, and Zillow Flex even more so. So you 5 years ago or 7 years ago, discovered this opportunity of these middle of funnel leads. How, if anything, has that opportunity changed 7 years later? Is there even greater urgency? The market, I don't know if you planned this to release this book.
I didn't.
Just that the market started to, you came up with this in the hottest sellers market known to man, right? So you formulated this book. As you released it 6 weeks later, we started seeing some weird things happening, right? Interest rates can go back to 6%. That's interesting. So a lot of things changed. What, if anything, has changed now, 7 years after you came up with this approach? Is it the same? Have the questions changed? What, if anything, is different now than when you first came up with the ideas that became this book?
I think Zillow and Realtor.com's business models since I wrote the book have evolved to where now they're really focused on referral fees. Realtor.com bought UpCity, Zillow moved to Zillow Flex. I think that's actually going to get, you could say, worse or better depending on whose vantage point. I'm not mad at Zillow for wanting some of my commission. They're running a business. I think those entities, and Redfin would be included in that, and all these other home lights and all these other services, they're going to consume the transaction ready bottom of funnel opportunity. I think it's just going to get worse. And so as an agent, I have to decide, do I want to effectively work for Zillow? Because that's what ends up happening. When you see a team take on Zillow Flex, their entire business is structured around what Zillow wants them to do. So that's why I say effectively working for them. Again, no hate. It's a business. They can do whatever they want. I think that's going to grow. It's just going to grow. And so the agents that, for whatever reason,
do you think they're going to get it? They're going to ask for a bigger slice of that pie, right?
They've already said that.
I mean, how can you be in a position? Yeah. How can you say no to that? How can you say no to that? Right.
Right. Well, because you're now depending on them. Some markets are going to 30. One market was told possibly 40%. So that's grown since then. And I think that with the market the way that it is, you aren't going to have people always have the same level of urgency and desire that they used to. So you're going to feel like you're talking to more tire kickers. That's what we call them, right? People that don't know what they want. So I'm going to use a phrase we all use. We're going to get more tire kickers now than we ever have because they're just not sure. And instead of saying, all right, well, I'll call you and maybe you'll be ready in 6 months, I'm going to get involved in the process and get them really close to me. And so what I've really become consumed with is how far down can I drive my new opportunity costs? So a Zillow lead used to cost me $400 a lead. It was hard to profit off of that. So then I moved to Google, somewhere between $10 to $22 a lead on Google, $5 to $8 a lead on Facebook. Well, as my database grew, and I now I've got 164,000 leads in my Follow Up Boss account. I'm running ads to that database, and it costs me about $1.50. Gus, can I call you Gus? Do you go by Gus?
I did. Yeah, most people
All
call
right,
me.
all right. So $1.50 to get somebody in my database to respond to an ad and do something important. So what's happened is with these old leads that are coming back to my website, we just do a temperature check. They've been in our system for 5 years. We just call them and say, hey, we're cleaning up our database. We were going to move your name to an archived status, but we didn't see in the notes if you ever found a house. So we figured we'd call, we'd check, did you ever find that home you're looking for? Statistically speaking, 33% of the time the lead answers the phone in that scenario, it becomes an appointment. The person says they're still looking, and we're like, you've been looking for 5 years. What's wrong? And that becomes an appointment about a third of the time.
Interesting. I love that. I love that. And, you know, it's a different approach. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned in the book that I'll be honest, Barry, is kind of hard to wrap your head around is that the number one gripe against these middle of funnel leads is that, they tell me they're a year out, right? They're telling me they're a year out. That's like, wow. Who's going to be able to follow up with that? So challenging. What do I do? I need an ISA. Oh, I can help. But that's an objection, right? Oh my goodness, I can't do that.
Right.
In the book, and this is a big claim in the book. This is a big, and a lot of people that have read this, they've caught on to this. If you follow the approach that's recommended, that timeline can be brought in, right? It's a big part of kind of what you say. If you follow the approach, if you trust the process, make it more about them. That year isn't real, but maybe isn't even real to begin with, probably, right?
Right.
And that timeline can be moved up. I mean, am I interpreting that correctly, Barry? And how does that happen? I mean, it seems, it's counterintuitive that if I'm less focused on the now, right? These very aloof, leads that don't need me, can become more of now business, right? So how does that work? Because it doesn't make sense on the surface. Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you're talking to prospects, first of all, I do not know many people in my own life that plan things a year ahead and slowly execute that. That sounds bad, but it's the truth. Now, retirements, buying a vacation home. Okay, those scenarios, those second home markets, I'm going to put an asterisk next to it. Okay, I'm talking about the people that are renting and they're considering buying. I need you to understand that when they say they're waiting a year, more than likely, the data is really clear. By January 21st, 77% of New Year's resolutions has failed. By the time February 1st comes around, 93% of all New Year's resolutions have failed. So as a society, we just aren't really great at consistency and long-term planning, unfortunately. So they're actually, the way you need to interpret them saying I'm waiting a year is, this is so overwhelming that I really don't even know what the plan is. And the way you can surface that is use how or what. How did you decide on waiting a year? What factors did you review to decide you're waiting a year? Don't move on and accept it as truth yet. Dig a little bit, be involved. And the way that I rephrase this shortening of the nurture, all these leads are 9 to 12 month nurtures. I say, listen, if you want to wait for them to figure it out on their own, them being the leads, yeah, it's 9 to 12 months. It's a big process. It's overwhelming. So, but if you actually become involved, you surface the needs, the ignorance, the fear, the confusion, and then you address it and make it easy for them, it's a 3 to 4 month process, because they start to get really excited as you empower them with clarity on the process. Did I lose you?
Oh, they disconnected for a sec. You're back. I think I'm back. I can see you.
Okay. All right. Did you catch that?
Yeah, definitely got it.
Okay.
Good. But I think we're like a couple seconds delayed, but I'm catching everything.
All right.
Perfect. Awesome. And very another part of the book, which I found very useful, and actually my team made an infographic. I should share that with you. We made an infographic on the stages, the different categories for these leads. I don't know if you call them categories or stages, I don't remember, but it's the four stages, right? So my team found it very useful to make like a little infographic kind of summarizing the description. And the dreamer phase takes up one infographic, and the other three are another one, right? So there's an emphasis in the book on the dreamer phase, because that's usually where a lot of these middle of funnel leads kind of begin. What is the approach? What is the challenge of taking that dreamer, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, get the book, read it, right? Or we'll figure it out. But I'm jumping into like a specific topic here. What's the challenge of your approach of converting that dreamer into the next phase, right? And what is that challenge? Is it in our control? Like, because a lot of times I think a lot of the literature, I'll call it that, it's a generous way to call it. The literature says, like, the conventional wisdom, that's better. The conventional wisdom says you can't change what they want or what they want to do, right? The lead is going to decide on their own, right? But is there a way to help identify that transition, right? Because it seems like the key transition in this whole process is that dreamer, which is the first phase, into that planner phase, right? That second one. That seems to be the one people struggle with the most. How do people navigate that transition more effectively?
Well, yeah. First I would say that anxiety and stress are powerful motivators to act or motivators to do nothing. And when you're considering spending a lot of money on anything, there's a lot of stress and angst that's involved. And so for a lot of people, they get the endorphins, right? The pleasure in their brain when they dream about having a home that they would like. That's why they think about it. We also call it retail therapy, right? Shopping for something on Amazon that you like and are interested in is enjoyable. You read the reviews, you look at the comments, it's pleasurable. And so they're dreaming about what they want because it's pleasurable to them. But then as soon as they get into the reality of what it costs and how to afford it, and is their credit good enough and their work history, the stress kicks in and that causes them to stop. If you can be the bridge between what their dreams are, and as soon as you surface what they're anxious about, maybe it's the money, normally it's the money, but maybe it's the logistical planning of selling their house and moving to the other. Maybe it's finding a home in their kid's school zone. You got to surface what's causing them to feel like they can't actually believe that this is going to happen. And so you surface whatever their anxiety point is, and then you come with kind of like the vibe that I would say is empowerment. You're going to empower them. The easiest example of this is to say at the end of a conversation, my other clients that have sounded like you have really appreciated having clarity when they find out what they can afford. And so what that does, Mr. Buyer, is you go from guessing and kind of, you checked a mortgage calculator, but you're not really sure, and you're kind of vaguely shopping on the largest, more than likely, purchase of your life. After you speak with somebody in the mortgage industry, you're going to know what your monthly payment can buy you. And now you can kind of say, based on what I can afford, here's what I can look at. And I want you to understand something, Mr. Buyer. You're going to start to enjoy the process because now you start to see where you're headed. So if you have 15 minutes, I can have the lender call you now, or if there's a better time, you don't have to go through the process, but I really want you to be empowered and stop stressing out about what you can and can't afford. Dude, when you get them on the phone with the lender, most people, if they're approved, they're very excited, and you just kind of get to move along with them in that process, and getting them to actually shop. As they figure out their budget, you say, look, I'm going to send you a few homes to look at. I want you to pick one. You're not allowed to buy it. We're going to look at it this weekend. I want you to see what your money can purchase so that you can start to experience it. But I want to give you a safe place to do that. So I'm telling you right now, I don't want you to buy a house this weekend. We're just going to look at one so you can learn. Does that sound fair? And then, it's, and you're providing them with help and they appreciate it.
Yeah. I love that, Barry, because a lot of the things that that you recommend in the book, I mean, it's their answer to questions we want. We want the answer to that question. Do they want to talk to the lender? But the way it's asked, the approach, right, is very different than kind of what I had seen before, right? And I think that's so important. How do you describe that? Like, what is that? How do you name that approach? What's the name of that approach? Because I'd love to ask, do you want to talk to a lender? Have you already spoken to a lender? I'd love to ask how many bedrooms and bathrooms you want. That would make, it's a transaction focused question. Yeah. What is this approach? The one where you're getting the end result you want, yeah, but the approach just seems very different. And for someone that can just say, it's just words, Barry, I'm asking the same question. No, yeah, you're not, right? It's a very different question because it feels like it's coming from a very different place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the best way I can describe it is, instead of focusing on what you want to know, focus on where the person is at, right? The phase of journey, and how you can help them where they're at. And so we want them to have clarity because then we can sell them something. We want them to know what they need so that we can just be a waiter or a waitress. Would you like fries with that? Do you want a soda? Would you like a lemon in your water? Right? We want to be very like, what do you want? And a good doctor, when you walk in the door, doesn't say, what kind of medicine would you like? Right? That's illegal, yeah, right? They ask you questions like, how's your diet been? What do you weigh? Right? What are your symptoms? And then based off of the conversation, they prescribe medicine or certain behavior. So instead of saying to a lead, what kind of house do you want? And hoping that they know, understanding that they're dreaming and they're really not sure, what's a way that you can cause them to think differently? People pay therapists a lot of money to be led down the path of self-discovery. It's a wonderful journey. I encourage everybody to do it. I love therapy. What I'll say is, instead of saying, what kind of house do you want? You say, hey, I know you're not ready to move. So now I'm aware of where they're at. But tell me, when you do decide to move, what would you like to change about where you live right now? That is a question that empowers the person to say, I know what I hate. I know why I want to move. And now they're figuring it out, right? And they're feeling understood, they're feeling heard. Meanwhile, I'm getting their list, right? I need a garage, I need an extra bedroom. Like, you've got all this data. Another one, understanding that they're not ready to get serious yet. Instead of saying, do you have an agent? Which selfishly, I need to know that. I say, hey, have you had a chance to look at homes with another agent? If they say yes, oh, that's great. And in my market, we just say, do you remember signing anything that requires you to work with them? That's how I find out, right? Instead of saying, do you have a pre-approval, right? Which is clarity and understanding. With a bottom of funnel lead, they love that question. Yes, I'm approved for 400,000. We say, I want to talk about the money. So I ask it in a way that gains trust. Do you know someone in the business, in the mortgage business, in the financial industry? And I actually, their response, yes or no, maybe is not going to change what I say next. What I say next is, so I say, do you have a friend or a family member in the mortgage business? They say yes or no. And I say, well, I'm asking because this is probably the largest purchase of your life. And if you're like most of my clients, you're kind of guessing. And I want to talk about that because it's very stressful to do that. And then I just go down the road. And, you collect all these people, right? You label them hot, warm, or cold, and then you stay close to them. And the way that you nurture them is, instead of calling and saying, are you ready? Are you ready? Did you see a house you like?
Just
Are you
checking
ready?
in. I'm
Yeah,
just checking
checking
in.
in. Stop saying that,
Are you
everybody.
ready?
No more touching
Are you
bases.
ready to touching base?
No more
Are
touching
you
ready
ready to transact now or
That's
tomorrow? So let me
selfish.
know.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
here. I'm
selfish.
ready. I'm ready to take the order. I'm ready to take the order.
Right, right. You say, hey, I have a blog, not groundbreaking, but I want to send you one of the articles that I think is going to help. Should I text it or email it? Hey, I've got a list of open houses. Are you in town this weekend? Yes or no? I've got a book on ebook on buying or selling a home. Would you like me to send it? And they say yes or no. They're probably never going to read it. And you just say, hey, well, I've got you. How's the process coming along? But you make the focus the thing that you're giving them. That change. This is why people don't nurture their leads, because they know if they call them and say, have you found a house yet? The lead won't answer the phone anymore. But if you call with a thing to give them, they will answer because they value the conversation. That changes your follow-up. And now as soon as they see you as a resource, they are your client, because now when they think house, they think you. And that's when you know you got them.
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on something really important, Barry, which is usually the bad outcome that happens when you don't follow this kind of an approach, which is it's not that you're going to be stuck kind of following up with and going nowhere with them. That's not really what happens. What happens is they stop responding. They ghost you, right? Like, hey, and I see this all the time. Like agents kind of puzzled. I had a great conversation with them. I talked to them and they answered my question. I thought we had a good connection, right? I was going to stay in touch with them. And they're no longer responding to my texts or my calls anymore, right? And you've been ghosted. You have been ghosted, right? And I always, the question in the back of my mind is, did you mismatch what you wanted with where they are? Because that's a very natural reaction to feeling, I don't need Barry right now because all he wants to do is show me homes. I don't want to see homes yet, right? I'm fine. I'm already watching homes. I'm looking them online. I'm fine. I don't really think that's necessary. The ghosting is the response. It's the result of
they don't see value in talking to you.
They don't see the value in talking to you. And I think it's even worse than that, Barry. I think there's certain, I mean, you tell me if you've seen this in the market. There's a segment that not only thinks that they don't need us right now, they think they don't need us at all. Right? I think it's even worse than that, right? They go, can I just click on a button like buy a home? Like it should be as easy as that, right? Like I buy everything online, it arrives at my doorstep. Why can't I just click a button and the home is right there and I print out a key or something? And that's a real, in my experience, that's a real consumer sentiment to a segment of the population. Absolutely. So the challenge is, and again, I don't blame them. They don't know what they don't know. And you say this in the book, I think you do the exact phrase. They don't know what they don't know. Right. And you should approach it assuming that they don't know what they don't know.
Well, if you're waiting for them to have all the information, they might as well just use an app.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why if you read the news, Zillow is pivoting all their money into what they're calling a super app. They're betting the farm that transaction ready clients don't want or need an agent. Yes. And I don't disagree. That's why I think the wisdom of this book over the next decade is really going to shine, because that bottom of funnel is going to be taken over. My wife just bought a car on Carvana and it was so much easier. So much easier. It was. I mean, life insurance. I bought mine through a reputable company in a mobile app. They sent a nurse, they checked me out. I think that's just, and look, to your point about I had a good connection. I don't have time for my real friends, people that I actually care about. Why would I want to continue an awkward conversation with a stranger who's acting like they care that our kids go to the same school, or we shop at the same grocery store, or we both like the same sports team, right? And I'm making notes, both like the same football team and they were really nice, right? And we're all excited and they're like, oh gosh, okay, I'm glad that's over with. Because they don't value it. We're focused on becoming fake best friends with this lead, but it's very selfish. I'm trying to connect with them to sell them something, and they know that. Why are we doing that? Why don't we just focus on what the person needs and become valuable? You'll always have an abundance. When you master what we're discussing today, Gus, you will always have an abundance of opportunity in this industry. Always. Because the nuance of having a consultative expert chat with you about what your needs are is valuable. There's a reason why I have a CPA and I don't use Quicken to do my taxes, right?
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. Having the largest purchase of your life, having someone valuable, giving you tips, saving you a year's worth of stress, making sure you don't waste money on something, that's very valuable. And so this is the way the industry's going. It's healthy for us, but it also requires that we as an industry change in how we deal with leads.
Yeah, it's kind of a big shift. And let me jump in real quick. We got some questions, some comments jumping in here on the live. So Ali dropping some gems of knowledge. Thank you, Ali. Very kind comment. Joe, hey, how's it going, Joe? And we have Raul here. So Raul's a member of my team. So let me read Raul's questions here. Right. So Raul is the guy that made the infographic, by the way. So he got into it enough. So Raul, living his best life, getting his question read to Barry. That's awesome. So Raul says, Barry, we mostly work with dreamers. He's talking about like Power ISA, that and that's true. Like people hire us to help them with that dreamer phase because it can be daunting, right? So right. We mostly work with dreamers. And as you describe the characteristics of a dreamer, they don't feel they should be talking to an agent at this point since they're not serious about making a move anytime soon. Or they're, like you said, they're overwhelmed with the process. What stood out from the book the most for him was that you have to create value for the call, right? His question would be, this is a good question. So I love this. This is one of the questions I already had, so it's great. From an ISA perspective, right? Where they're not the agent, right? They're not the agent. How can the ISA be the surrogate and create value from that first interaction? And what's the best approach for an ISA to implement this model? It's one of the questions I had. So thank you, Rolf, for bringing that up. Yep. So very selfish question here, right? This is for Power ISA, right? Because this is what we do. And I don't know, you may not be aware of this, Barry, but we transitioned more to a model where we place ISAs within teams. We're no longer hiring like our employees anymore. We're helping the team source and hire an ISA directly, so they own that relationship. They're part of that team. So I think that's relevant to this answer. But how does the ISA? Because you have ISA, actually you have ISAs on your team. I know you have several. I think you have multiple ISAs on your team. How does this model work when there's that handoff in that relationship? I mean, does it go from like dreamer? The ISA does dreamers, and then the agent does the transactors. How does the ISA fit in this model? Because you're running it, right? You're implementing this. How does the ISA fit there?
So the way that we handle it, when I first started my team in late 2011, early 2012, I had an old friend from high school. Her name's Rachel, and Rachel she graduated college, but she was waiting tables, and she said, Barry, I've watched your success. I want to join your team. The first 4 months, I didn't have any training, right? I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. Rachel, I think, sold 4 houses in her first 4 months. She was a waitress. Suddenly she's an agent. One day I said to her, Rachel, how are you selling so many houses? She said, oh, it's so simple. I just tell them that I'm your partner, and that you sell 125 homes a year, and that you're the best agent in our area. And she rode my acumen for 2 years before she felt confident enough to do it on her own. And she continued to sell 50 to 60 homes a year. Now she owns her own business and she's doing very well, and we're still friends. But why did I tell that story? Your job is to highlight the need to have someone go through the questions that they need. Now, the way that I handled it is as the team owner, you guys can't do this, but as the team owner, I want my ISAs to find leads that want or value talking to an agent. And the way that we do that is the questions I list in the book, some of the questions I've already shared in this session. By surfacing, we want to hear them say something like, I didn't know that, or I haven't considered that, or that's a great question. And that's when we just sell. Exactly, Mr. Buyer. right? When I say to them, do you have a friend or a family member in the mortgage business? We can connect you with someone if you need help. Oh, I don't know. I really haven't thought about that. I'm not ready for that. Perfect. I'm glad you're not ready, because that means that you're in a position that you need to be taught. That's why you need to have a 15-minute consult with one of our agents to be given some direction, so you don't spin your wheels on what is likely the largest purchase of your life, right? And so there needs to be a partnership between the ISA and the agent receiving the lead. With the middle of funnel opportunity that doesn't know what they want and has low urgency, the agent receiving the appointment needs to stop acting like it's sphere, or needs to stop acting
100%.
like it's a referral. They need to understand that the ISA surfaced a human that is willing to listen to someone teaching them something about the business. And so the agent has to work it that way. And as long as the agent that's receiving the ISA appointment understands they need to do some of these questions, it's going to work. Because look, there's no magic fairy dust. I don't care how good the ISA is. I'm not going to sprinkle dust on the conversation and suddenly the person's transaction ready. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
What I'm paying an ISA to do is the work of prospecting. It's hard to call people all day. That is difficult work. It's valuable. What I think people do when they hire an ISA is they mistakenly think, I need to increase conversion, so I'm going to hire someone that specializes in it. I think that's a mistake. You might disagree with me, but with middle of funnel leads, how are you going to get them to speed up if you're not an agent? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But if I'm paying a business to work hard and to find people that I've surfaced a need to be educated, connect them, then I can, as an agent, I can go and do other business building. It's a leverage play is what it is. And to me, that doesn't devalue the ISA. In my mind, that makes the ISA even more important, to the point, Gus, I've actually moved over to a pure ISA model. New leads go to the ISAs. They do not go to the agent.
Interesting.
The hard task of calling all day is placed on the ISAs. When they find a human that wants to talk to an agent, that's when we set the appointment. But then the agent has to be the one that's teaching about the local market and lending and financing, because they're licensed to do that.
I got you 100%. And, Barry, and you're preaching to the choir, because a lot of this is funny. We see the exact same situation when we're talking about cold calling and prospecting.
Oh yeah.
The best use of an ISA is not to, give you a transaction ready client from cold calling. No. The best use of an ISA is to make the 200 calls it takes to find someone that's interested in talking to the agent, right?
That's how I've scaled my business.
It's the exact same approach, and even more so with an inbound lead opportunity, which is just another face of that kind of problem. They're making calls and they're connecting with people, trying to find someone that is interested, willing to take that call, that has the need. And you have to approach it from the need basis, not from your need. No, it's their problem. Oh, if you want to solve that problem and just that need, save some time, don't spin your wheels, then the solution is talking to my agent. All those different problems, and the solution is then talk to Barry. This is exactly what you need, right? So agree with that 100%, right? 100%. I don't think we have a difference of opinion on that, because I think that is the best use of an ISA. I agree with you, because I deal with this all the time, that a lot of folks mistakenly believe that the role of the ISA is to give them the transactor ready to go and take the order, right? So
it works that way.
And not even with Zillow leads, it doesn't really work that way, right? It's a higher level of qualification. The appointment is just the hot lead versus the warm versus the cold. It's another classifier to help you find a more motivated lead that you then have to take to the finish line, right? So I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think the people that have scaled teams, that have built businesses, I think they get it better than anyone. So I'm glad you're saying that, because I don't think that's 100% true. And that's how we've progressed and kind of modified our business and our messaging to the clients. Setting the proper expectations. If you want to be successful, you have to have an approach like that. You have to have that. But it kind of begs the question, Barry, because we're talking about having the agent be ready to approach that appointment the right way. How has your team dealt with it? Because I'm assuming your team gets referrals and recommendations. They might even get something equivalent to portal leads or something like that.
Right.
And they get these middle of funnel.
Right.
How have you been able to train your team, educate your team, coach your team to adapt to every situation appropriately? Because I've seen agents struggle with that. They usually have one approach to all of them, and they're kind of frustrated with why internet leads suck. That's the reaction I see. Oh, internet leads are terrible. Like, I love my sphere. Internet leads are the worst. How have you avoided that? Or maybe you don't. I don't know. How have you dealt with that
I haven't avoided
in your organization?
I have not avoided it. It's a real problem. And people that are watching this probably understand most of what I've said. And they're taking notes and they're like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then they call leads, and the part of your brain that you use when you're nervous, we call it fight or flight, right? It goes back to what your instincts are. We're nervous, we're calling a stranger, so we accidentally go back to the way we've always done things. So what we've done is we have on a piece of paper, we've got the questions that we want our agents to ask the lead. There's 3 that we want them, a minimum of 3. And that's how we get around it. And it sounds so simple, but when you listen to some of these calls, it's hilarious because you can tell that this agent that's new to the business is reading the question. What are you hoping to change about where you live right now? Like, it's so bad. It's so bad, but it still works. And as the person starts answering the questions, then as soon as the agent hears ignorance, misinformation, fear, they jump on it because they're a nice person and they're like, oh, wait, they need me. And then their instincts kick in. It's literally just going through 3 minutes of an awkward conversation. If you can get through 3 minutes, ask 3 questions, you're going to surface a need for yourself to be involved.
I love that. So, I mean, we're winding down here. We're running out of time, Barry. One more question, very tactical question, because I think just this answer you just gave is a whole other hour of like training and the mindset change and the. But how would you say? Because you mentioned a lot, in the book and in another interview you've done. There's that feedback loop of recording the call and listening to the call. Because if anything, I found the exact same thing you found, that people, you can tell people something and they can understand it, like consciously understand it, but it is challenging to go and execute that for all the reasons you just mentioned. What have you found is the most effective way to get them to change that, right? And how long does that usually take? In your experience, how long does it take to remove the reptilian fight or flight part of it and start becoming more competent at having this conversation and identifying where this lead is at?
I think it's less about how long, it's more about, are you consistently doing it or not? If the person is consistently practicing 3 to 4 days a week, making calls, having conversations with prospects, they start to learn how to make the questions that we teach to make them their own. That's really what we want. I don't want them just using the questions that I used to just use them, but they start to get into a flow. And I find even if they got, like they figured it out, if they take some time off, it takes a little while to make it second nature. And that's why we keep those questions next to their computer screen. So
it's like a visual aid. They've got it right there next to them.
Because they're nervous. Yeah. They're nervous. They're like, I don't know what to say next. And look, even someone like me, if I was to pull up a dialer and start calling, you wouldn't be able to tell, but even I get a little bit of angst in talking to a stranger. I've worked through it and I can, do it all. It's fine, but it's because I care. I think the only other way to sell a lot is to not care. And there's a lot of really great salespeople that are like, buy or die. I'm going to close them. I'm going to make it. I don't care about these leads. They've figured out how to protect themselves and their egos from. I, on the other hand, am coming literally from the opposite end. I care so much that I have to force myself to ask questions that I'm uncomfortable. And so you don't need courage if you're not afraid. People think courageous people aren't afraid. You need courage when you do something while you're afraid. And so even if you're afraid to call these strangers, all you do is you say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask these questions. They're going to be printed next to my screen. And what you'll find is we're not selling vacuum cleaners. We're not selling pencils, right? We're helping them with, they walked into our virtual office. It's someone that came to me, and now I'm offering an olive branch to say, hey, I understand you. I hear you. Oh, and one other thing, always compliment their objection. It's a quick way to make them feel understood and heard. It doesn't matter how weird it is, right? If they say there's aliens, as I said, I think I said this in the book, dropping off money in the backyard, and that's why you're waiting to buy. You know what? If I thought aliens were coming tomorrow, I would change a few steps about my process as well. Totally get it. So let me ask you, when you do move, what do you want to change about where you live? And just keep it moving.
100%. I love that. That's great. One last question. You squeeze one more in, Barry. So it's been a journey to get to this book. A lot of knowledge, a lot of experience with your team, with Ylopo, with everything that you've done. What's the next domino to fall? I'm getting that from Gary Keller, one of his books, right? The One Thing. So a lot of times this isn't the end goal. It's part of the journey, right? What's the next domino to fall now that you've created this and it's starting to have the impact? I don't know. I'm hoping it's having the impact that you wanted. Is it having the impact that you wanted? And what's the next thing to come now that you've created a piece of content like this?
Yeah, I mean, we've sold over 8,000 copies, and I haven't advertised it. Yeah, it's
That's awesome.
Consistently. It goes in cycles, but consistently in top 50 for real estate sales. Which is just crazy because even I said in the book, I didn't learn what a noun was until I was in my 20s. So it's funny. And I'm going to take it a different direction because you guys probably weren't thinking this, but I'm starting the process of writing Too Nice for Marriage because
Interesting. Whoa, wow, that's wild.
Yeah. What I've found is that in marriage, people that are nice tend to not bring their needs into the relationship. It creates a fake dynamic to where neither person really understands the other, and they coexist, but they don't actually go deep. And so, yeah, probably, I'm not 100% certain, but probably the next step is Too Nice for.
And actually, it reminds me of this, one of the best books I've read on leadership. Leadership Effectiveness Training started as a parenting book. So it's like a little bit of the opposite approach. So PET is the precursor to LET.
Oh, that's funny.
Because guess what? A lot of the same principles tend to apply when you're talking to people and dealing with people and in that case, managing and leading a family has, who knew, similarities, some similarities to managing and leading a team, right? So that I love that. That'd be an awesome treat. Oh, one last question. When's the comic book version of Too Nice for Sales coming out? I know that's also been mentioned out there in the universe. Any plans on that yet? That'd be a treat as well.
Yeah, I have. I do have some content being put together for that, and I've made a bunch of courses.
Great. Well, actually, that's fine. Yeah, what's the best way to continue that conversation, to consume some of that content? What is the best way to do that?
TooNiceForSales.com. I happen to have. I was able to get like the real domain for the book. Nice. But TooNiceForSales.com, and I've got a bunch of courses, PDFs, things. I've got a middle of funnel lead rubric. The Too Nice for Sales course is 10 sections with assignments. I read what I believe to be the most important part of the book, like a paragraph. I actually read it to the person in the course, and then I have you do assignments and quizzes. The feedback on that's been phenomenal. So that would be what I recommend next.
Yeah, because one of the things I think people can struggle with is crafting those questions, I think, right? That you mentioned so many of them in the book, you mentioned a lot of them right here, but I think there's always more, right? Like, hey,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
how can we get more of those? How can we get more of those questions? How can we get more detailed? So yeah, I love that you've got more content, like long form content based on the book, because the book is a very brisk read. I mean, that's just
It
not a
is.
really difficult book to read.
Right.
You're always
Right.
kind of left with, okay, but you know, I want more. I love that you're already creating that. That's awesome. Barry, this has been a joy. It's been a
Same.
pleasure, been a ton of fun. You know, everything I expected and more. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being gracious and generous with your time. Folks, you know, people in the audience, they know I love this book. Go out there, get the book, and also review the book. I realized like a month ago, I hadn't even reviewed it on Amazon yet. Like, what am I doing? So I jumped in and I dropped a review a month ago, but I'd read it months ago, right? So if you're liking this book, you're loving this book, don't just get it. Drop a 5-star review for Barry too.
Were you Goose? Is that
Goose, yes,
I read
yes.
that.
I
That
am
was
the
a very
goose.
kind review. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, no, great. You know, and yeah, because I honestly, there's not a lot of great, you know, lead conversion books out there. Like in
I know.
general. I asked this question in LCA and it got like 3 suggestions. You know, so like and you know, and there were mostly cold calling books about lead
Yeah.
conversion. They go, and there's a ton of those, right? Cold calling books. Like, but nothing like this. I don't think there's anything like this.
Yeah.
So, and not only is it filling a need where there's no other competition, really, I think it's a really great book, right? So
Thank
in
you,
and of
man.
it's standalone in and of itself. So it's a great one. So thank you, Barry,
Appreciate
so
it.
much,
Thank
man.
you.
You
This was
know,
awesome.
anything you need, another one, I'll be sending you also this conversation. So you want to reuse this video, it'd be
Yeah.
great. You know, you can use it for whatever you want. I'm going to be clipping this to death, right? There's some really great nuggets in this conversation. We went, you know, over an hour, so it's a great one. So
Yeah.
thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. And thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Gus. All right. Bye-bye.